What? Oh! We want to welcome our viewing audience to a special breaking news report. You are watching Jerusalem Live, and I'm reporter Has Been.
And I am Whitts.
And this newscast is brought to you by our sponsor, Roadkill Recipes. Scrape 'em, then bake 'em.
Supper's just a shovel and spice away.
Yes. Now on to our news story.
Reports are that there has been a catastrophic event in the city of Jericho. We are receiving news that the walls surrounding the city have fallen down.
Yes, and for no apparent reason, it apparently appears that they apparently fell down.
This leaves the city completely exposed to attacks.
Yes, which cannot be a good thing. I'm sure the city leaders did not plan on this.
Thank you, Has Been, for your brilliant analysis. But this is causing quite a problem for the city.
And we do have a video report of the incident, if we could cue that up now. Okay, we off the air? You always have to get your little dig in, don't you?
I just don't know why you think you have to say the obvious.
Well, excuse me, little Miss Perfect Hair. Not all of us got to attend the Smears Academy of Reporting.
I did graduate third in my class.
There's only 3 in your class.
That's beside the point.
In the Old Testament, God picked out a great place for his people to live. But, long story short, they ended up in Egypt for 400 years instead. God led his people back to this land he promised to give them, but there was a problem. Other people moved in while God's people were gone. God picked a man named Joshua to be the leader of Israel. He had watched Moses lead God's people for years, so he learned to go when God said go and stay when God said stay. Joshua got really good at obeying God in the little things and in the big things by obeying his leader Moses. God gave Joshua very specific directions on how to defeat the people who were living in God's promised land. It wasn't a normal kind of battle plan at all, but Joshua trusted God so much that he was ready to obey no matter what God asked. The first enemy city they came to was Jericho. Jericho had a big tall wall that protected the city. God told Joshua to line up all of God's people, the Israelites, and march around the city once a day for 6 days. Then on the 7th day, they were to march around the city 7 times. No fighting, no yelling, just marching. So Joshua did just what God said. He led all of the people to line up and obey God too. Even though this plan sounded crazy, and even though the walls of the city were big and tall, Joshua obeyed what God told him to do. On the first day, they marched around the city's big tall wall. No fighting, no yelling, just marching. On the second day, they marched around the city's big tall wall. No fighting, no yelling, just marching. On the third day, they marched around the city's big tall wall. No fighting, no yelling, just marching. You get the picture, right? Same thing on the 4th day, and the 5th day, and the 6th day. It seemed like nothing was happening. Jericho's big tall wall was still big and tall. On the 7th day, God told Joshua to march around the city 7 times. This time, they blew their trumpets and yelled. And guess what? They saw that big tall wall fall. It was a miracle. Because of Joshua's great obedience, the people of Israel obeyed God's instructions too, and God destroyed the big tall wall of Jericho. Joshua continued to obey God in the little things and in the big things. He trusted God no matter what. He led God's people into the promised land, and God made Joshua into a mighty leader. You can read about him in his very own book of the Bible, Joshua.
Welcome back to Jerusalem Live for our special report on the walls of Jericho. I am reporter Has Been.
And I am Whitts. Thank you so much for being with us.
And we are receiving news by the minute concerning our breaking news story, which may be new news to you, but for those of you who knew the new news, after it
Yes,
was
it
news.
seems that the breaking down of the walls of Jericho was not a structural issue.
Nor was it an accident. The report is that God actually knocked the walls down so Israel could conquer the city.
This appears to be a miracle.
And it's the kind of miracle that only God could do, which makes it a miracle, I suppose, because if we could do it, it probably wouldn't be a miracle. And so where was I going with this?
God did a miracle to keep his promise to Israel.
Yes, and he promised to give Israel the land of Canaan.
So God helped Israel defeat the people already living there.
Starting with those in the city of Jericho. That's why God knocked the walls down for Israel.
The question now becomes, what can we learn from this?
Well, I believe there are some things we can draw out of this drawn-out affair. So let me draw out a word picture so that we can draw from this drawn-out event. And
You draw me in with that intro.
What?
Never mind. What can we learn from this story?
Well, first of all, number one, God can do the impossible for us.
Surprisingly, that's right, has been. God can heal us, provide what we need, and give us direction.
And he can help with our struggles. God can do miracles for us.
The second thing is we have to do what God says to experience God's miracles.
Excellent point, Dimwit. Like Israel had to march around the city of Jericho one time a day for 6 straight days, and then 7 times around the city on the 7th day, and then they had to blow their trumpets and shout, all because God told them to do so.
And when they obeyed, God did the impossible for them.
And we need to be obedient to God also. When we are, God does great things for us too.
We are coming to a hard break, kids. Listen to this song about the walls of Jericho, put together by our crack news team.
Okay, we off the air? Hey, does my breath stink?
Everything stinks about you.
What?
Never mind.
Jericho, Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. You can talk about the men of Gideon, you can talk about the men of Saul, but there's none like good old Joshua and the battle of Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Right up to the walls of Jericho, with spear in hand. Go, go, then ram horns, Joshua cried, 'cause the battle is in my hand. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Then the ram sheep horns began to blow, and the trumpets began to sound. Joshua told them to give a shout, and the walls came tumbling down. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down.
We're back on.
What?
We're on.
Mom? Oh. Welcome back to Jerusalem Live. I'm reporter Has-Been.
And I am Tim Whitts. We have been covering the story about the destruction of the walls of Jericho.
which enabled Israel to then take the city just as God promised.
And what God promises, he does. The Bible says in 23:19, does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill?
Of course, God does what he says, even if he has to use a miracle to accomplish it.
So the application is obvious. Do what God says, and he will fulfill his promises to you.
Yes, very well put, Dimwit. But we are out of time. This is Reporter Has Been.
And I am Dim Whitts.
And this broadcast has been brought to you by our sponsor, Roadkill Recipes. Scrape 'em, then bake 'em.
Supper's just a shovel and a spice away.
Well, as we sign off, we do want to say goodbye to our viewing audience.
Gage, Craig, how you doing, Grayson?
Aubrey and Piper and Millie.
And Bella and Trent, what's up, Renee?
Caden, Phoenix, and Renaya.
Lily, Carson, how you doing, Paxton?
And Camden and Macklin and Cohen.
And Sloan and Will, what's up, Levi?
Samantha, Faith, Hunter.
Roman, Landon, and Jack.
And Alaric, Ava, and Reagan.
Remember to always do what God says.
And he will keep his promises to you.
Even if God has to do a miracle.
This has been.
And this is Dim Whitts signing off for now.
Off the air? Okay.
Can't we get a better sponsor? I'm a professional, you know.
Well, what's wrong with who we have?
Roadkill Recipes, really? That's disgusting.
Oh, I don't know. Have you ever tried the flattened possum fajitas?
No
Quite
wonder.
delicious.
No wonder your breast stinks.
What? My breast stink. I asked you about that earlier. Why didn't you tell me?